Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update from RAU'S.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper analysis from the perspective of UPSC examination. Today we have taken up Delhi edition of The Hindu newspaper dated 9th of January 2020. The articles which we are going to cover today are displayed on the screen. Let us now begin the discussion.
Dear students, RAU'S Prelims Test Series 2021 is a complete testing and revision course for the upcoming prelims examination. The program will help you prepare for UPSC prelims through a step-up approach. It is a meticulously designed study plan to organize your preparation and keep you on track towards covering the prelims GS and CSAT syllabus extensively from NCERT to the advanced level. The goal of our Prelims Test Series 2021 program is to exhaustively cover all standard sources of study material, including NCERT, with a study plan to test you at par with UPSC level of questions, thereby improving your chances of clearing the prelims examination. To give multiple revision of the entire syllabus from the perspective of civil service prelims pattern, the test series program will also give you the final revision of all topics and themes before the examination through QIP videos and prelims compass notes. The QIP videos or Quality Improvement Program videos are for speedy revision of all important topics for the upcoming prelims examination. QIP videos are kind of crash course for the prelims examination. And prelims compass are 8 subject-wise prelims compilation of all static and current affair topics important for the upcoming prelims. RAU'S Prelims Test Series 2021 will include topics test, testing the concept of candidate. It will include thematic test on both the concept and the current affair of that particular theme. It will also include current affair tests covering the monthly current affairs. And there will be full-length test before the final exam to simulate you for the D-Day. There is a link in the description of this video. You can click on the link for registration and to also check out the demo QIP.
Okay, so the first article which we have taken for today's discussion appears on page number 6. Beyond the Central Vista verdict, key questions. If you are reading the newspapers regularly, you must have read about the Central Vista project as well as the challenge which was put forward in Supreme Court against this project. And the Supreme Court of India cleared the decks for the intensely contested new parliament and Central Vista project. Supreme Court stated that it should limit itself strictly to the procedures sanctioned by law, and the majority judgment concluded that the government had followed all processes as stipulated by regulations and could go ahead with the construction. Now in this regard, this article highlights few of the important issues and challenges which the public projects face currently in India. And this particular topic is very important from the perspective of both GS2 and GS4, which have a component of syllabus dealing with governance, transparency, accountability. And in this particular discussion, we will understand what were the major issues with two of the important projects, namely the Central Vista project and the capital of Andhra Pradesh Amaravati project. And then what are the questions which are still unanswered, and then the solutions which the author has recommended. So let us now begin the discussion. Now, according to the author, there are glaring issues in most of the public projects being taken in India, right? Although the Central Vista project is the one which is most visible, obviously because it deals with the parliament and it is located in Delhi. And author does not contest the claim that it did not follow regulations and environmental norms. It is alright that all the norms and regulations were followed. But what was missing was the participatory process or the participation of the people into the deciding of the design or the need or any other thing of the project. Then there were issues with the way the designer and the development agency of this particular project was chosen, and we will go into that as well in detail. Then author says that the ambitious project of the earlier government of Andhra Pradesh to set up its capital at Amravati, the way it was planned and the speed with which the project was abandoned with the change of the government is another example. According to the author, when the plan was being made, many times it was erratically changed. Then there was sudden change of the architect when the project moved towards the construction, and then finally, after acquiring vast areas of land through a controversial method, the project was abandoned, which left a lot of farmers agitated. They were agitated once their land was taken, but when their land was not being utilized to make the capital, they were doubly agitated. And finally, the project has been scrapped. And so, these two prominent issues or instances highlight two important drawbacks or flaws in our public projects. First is, of course, the lack of public process, and the second is the way and the process adopted in choosing the designer and the development agencies. Let us now focus our attention first towards the participation of the people. According to the author, which is a must for any mega projects like Central Vista or Amravati project. And here, you should not confuse between a direct and an indirect democracy. We know that government is elected body and it is elected so that it can take decisions on our behalf. And so it has mandate as well as the authority to decide on such projects. There is no doubt about this fact. But what is not so trivial is the lack of accountability. The government has the power, mandate and authority to decide on these projects, but it cannot be devoid of accountability. And when author talks about accountability, it talks about two kinds of accountabilities. One is horizontal and the next is vertical. So what does it mean by horizontal accountability? So horizontal accountability means that creating an interrelated state organization which scrutinize the projects. For example, creation of a heritage committee within the government or environmental regulators within the government which scrutinize the project on various grounds. Now here, most of the governments across the world argue that they have proper mechanisms in place for horizontal scrutiny or accountability. So for example, there are various committees not only in parliament but also in governments which design the project, which scrutinize the project, which deal with the budgeting of the project. So all these mechanisms. But what is starkly lacking in our country is the vertical accountability, the accountability of the government towards its citizens. Now, one can say that we have elections and each 5 years we have opportunity to impose accountability. But that is it. Currently, the accountability of the government towards a citizen is limited to elections. But there is no citizen oversight on project to project or case to case basis. And wherever such provisions for consultation with the citizens are present, they are quite vague and they lack clear objectives. For example, they do not stipulate clear objective measures to determine whether stakeholder discussions meet the test of public consultation. And as a result, citizens are at a mercy of an official or judge's interpretation. So ultimately what happens is that when a project is floated and it is being implemented, then the only recourse for the citizens is to go to the judiciary. And that is why author talks about institutionalizing public consultation processes in almost all the public projects. And the second, and an equally important concern with the public projects in India is the way the projects are floated, the way the designer and the development agencies are chosen. And let us understand that. Now we all can agree that the projects like Central Vista, where a new concept of parliament is being designed, and Amravati, where the government wanted to create a state capital like no other in the world, the projects like these requires a high level of creativity to meet functional, performance as well as aesthetic sense which the people of India in general or the current government in particular would want to implement. Not just that, choosing designer is also important because ultimately the project is going to be implemented on the taxpayers' money, and so the way these designers and implementers are chosen is very important one. If you make poor choices while choosing the designer it is going to disastrously impact the construction activity, building use, city functioning, and the value of money itself. And according to the author, if you leave some of the projects, most of the governments in state as well as the central government follow the closed competition method. There are very rare instances where an open competition is allowed. Open competition or closed competition basically means providing an equal platform to all the participants. Now we know that while inviting bidders, the government cannot discriminate. And so, how the government go about giving the projects to the development agencies is through a system which is known as quality and cost based selection. And this is the method which has been recommended by Ministry of Finance. Now this method allows for setting prerequisites for consultants, placing higher weightage on their technical competency and relatively lower weightage on financial proposals. And according to the government, this is meant to prioritize the quality and not low price. Now in this particular method, as we have discussed, the higher weightage is provided to the technical advancement rather than the finances, which means that if a designer A comes with a project which is expensive than the idea submitted by B, but if the government thinks that this is technically advanced, then the government has the authority to give the project to this one. But what we understand is that public projects should be given to the lowest bidder. And the second problem is that so many conditions are put forward while releasing the tender itself that it basically means that most of the professionals or the designers working in architecture and construction would not be able to qualify for the bid itself. And some of the direct examples could be the requirement of steep turnover conditions. So a government puts a condition of minimum turnover required by a company in order to be eligible to apply for the project. And let's say that it is put at 500 crore rupees in order to be eligible for a particular project. And the idea behind this is that more the turnover, the better is the company in terms of expertise. Now all of those who are familiar with the design and creativity know that the creative outcomes are not a function of a firm's revenue. And so these steep entry requirements eliminate medium and small size firms and enable only a handful of large construction firms like L&T, Shapurji, Pallonji Group, Tata Constructions and many others like these to be the only one to compete for the construction projects. And so according to the author, the recommendation would be dropping the turnover requirements from these mega projects and laying special emphasis on qualitative requirements rather than the quantitative requirements. So for example, the emphasis should be on the design and not on the turnover. And similarly, the second very important recommendation is the bifurcation of the projects into design and development. So a tender should be floated only for the concept and the design and the architecture of a plan, and then once the design is finalized, then another tender should be floated for the development phase. So according to the author, during the development phase, these criteria could be implemented as of course it requires hefty sum of money, but as far as design is concerned, all the companies and all the creators and the designers should be allowed to contribute to the nation building. Now this particular article highlighted a very important issue with the public projects in our country, that is lack of participatory process and the way the designer is chosen. It will become very important in GS paper 2 under the accountability section. So keep these points in your mind and let us now move on to the next discussion. Now the next news which appears is on page number 8. SEC, that is State Election Commission, announces dates for local body elections in AP. Now the State Election Commission has opted to hold Panchayat election in Andhra Pradesh after weighing the pros and cons, and it has announced the dates already. And now this brings us to a very important topic which is quite frequented by UPSC in prelims examination, and that is about the Panchayati Raj or local governance, especially the 73rd constitutional amendment. And now since there are not a lot of news which can be covered today, we will utilize this opportunity to cover the constitutional provisions related to the 73rd constitutional amendment or the Panchayati Raj system. Before we do that, let us have a look at two questions, and these are just two questions but many other questions have been asked. For example, in 2016 UPSC asked, consider the following statements. The minimum age prescribed for any person to be a member of Panchayat is 25 years. A Panchayat reconstituted after premature dissolution continues only for the remainder period. Then in 2011, UPSC asked the Constitution 73rd Amendment Act 1992, which aims at promoting the Panchayati Raj institution in the country, provides for which of the following? Constitution of District Planning Committee, State Election Commissions to conduct all Panchayati elections, establishment of State Finance Commissions. And now let us go through the discussion from the original source, which is the Constitution of India, and see that whether these questions could be answered if you had read the Constitution of India. And starting with the very basics, and that is which part of the Constitution of India deals with the Panchayati Raj system. And if you look at the original PDF and if you scroll down, you can see part 1 deals with the union and its territories, part 2 deals with the citizenship, part 3 deals with fundamental rights. And similarly, if you scroll further down, you can see the panchayats is dealt within part 9, which starts at Article 243 with the definitions, and then going further, part 9a deals with the municipalities. So Article 243 first defines the term which will be used in this particular part, which means what will be a district, what do you call a Gram Sabha, and it is important to know that Gram Sabha means a body consisting of persons registered in the electoral rolls relating to a village comprised within the area of panchayat at the village level. So Gram Sabha is an inclusive body which includes everyone whose name appears in the electoral rolls. Then it defines what does it mean by intermediate level, panchayat, panchayat area, population and village. And so a village under part 9 would mean village specified by the governor by public notification. So that can also be framed as one of the options in the prelims examination. Now part 243 is very important, which says a Gram Sabha may exercise such powers and perform such functions at the village level as the legislature of a state may by law provide. And this is one of the biggest problem with the delegation of the powers to the local level, because the constitution uses a very important word may, and it does not use a word shall. And so that is where the freedom has been given to the state governments to enable the Gram Sabha to exercise function. Then Article 243b deals with the constitution of panchayats, and the constitution mandates that there shall be. And now note here that the word shall has been used. There shall be constituted in every state panchayat at village, intermediate and district level in accordance with the provisions of this part. As far as panchayats at intermediate level is concerned, they may not be constituted in state having a population not exceeding 20 lakhs. So all those states which have population less than 20 lakhs may not have intermediate level of panchayats. They can only do with the village and the district level. But those two are mandatory. Now what about the composition of panchayats? Then Article 243c deals with composition of panchayats. That the legislature of a state may by law make provisions with respect to the composition of the panchayats. But all those laws shall be subject to the provisions of this part. But it puts a condition even there, that the ratio between the population of a territorial area of a panchayat at any level and the number of seats in such panchayat to be filled by election shall, as far as practicable, be same throughout the state. So take any level, let's say take a district level. And so if there is a district 1 which has 100 seats for 1 lakh population, so which means that per seat has around 1000 people, and so this particular ratio shall be same in any other district of the same state. And the second important provision of Article 243 is that all the seats in a panchayat shall be filled by persons chosen by direct election from territorial constituencies in panchayat area. So this is a very important provision, that all the seats in panchayats shall be filled by persons chosen by direct election from the people. And for this purpose, for this election, the panchayat area shall be divided into smaller constituencies. That is very commonsensical, and again the same rule of ratio shall be followed throughout the state. Then the third provision says the legislature of a state may by law provide for the representation of, and so this provision deals with some other people who may not be directly elected by the people for the representation. And who are these people? The chairpersons of panchayat at village level, at the intermediate level. So there are 3 levels of panchayats in most states. We have village level, we have intermediate level, and then we have district level. So the chairpersons of village level might be represented in intermediate level, and similarly the chairpersons of panchayats at intermediate level may get a seat at district level. It also provides for provisions so that the members of House of People and members of Legislative Assembly of the state whose constituencies partially or wholly lie in Panchayat area may also get representation. But all these things are not mandatory. Only if the state laws provides for such kind of provision, only then it can be implemented. Then similarly, not only the members of House of People and members of Legislative Assembly, but also the members of Council of States and the members of Legislative Council of the state can get the representation at the intermediate and the district level, but only at the place where they are registered as electors. Then the question arises, and a very important one, that how will the chairperson of a panchayat at various levels will be elected? And so the chairperson of panchayat at village level shall be elected in such a manner as the legislature of a state may by law provides. So the constitution does not provide for any fixed format to be followed throughout the country. But the chairperson of a panchayat at the intermediate level or district level shall be elected by and from amongst the elected members of the panchayat itself. As far as village level is concerned, states have the freedom to follow different kinds of formats. But for chairperson at intermediate and district level, the constitution uses the word shall, and hence it is mandatory that all of them shall be elected from and amongst the members themselves. Then we know that it also provides for reservation of seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and that is being done in Article 243D. And then it also provides for the reservation of the women. Then it also talks about duration of panchayats in Article 243E. And it says, every panchayat, unless sooner dissolved under any law for the time being in force, shall continue for 5 years from the date appointed for its first meeting and no longer. And it says that an election to constitute a panchayat shall be completed before the expiry of its duration specified in Clause 1, which means before the expiry of the 5 years, or before the expiration of a period of 6 months from the date of its dissolution. So in a normal course, every 5 years you would expect panchayat election. But if a panchayat is dissolved before 5 years, let's say in 3.5 years, then the next elections have to be conducted within 6 months of the dissolution. And then a very important clause 4 says a panchayat constituted upon the dissolution of a panchayat before the expiration of its duration shall continue only for the remainder of the period for which the dissolved panchayat would have continued. So let us understand this with an example. If a panchayat is constituted in 2020 and let's say if it is dissolved in 2023, so the normal course would have been till 2025, that is the period of 5 years. But if it is dissolved in 2023, which means that the remainder period is 2 years, and so when a new panchayat is formed, it will continue only for a period of 2 years. And that is one of the options which was given in the prelims question which we have shown in the first slide. Then there are various conditions which have been set by the constitution for the disqualification for the membership of a panchayat. So if a person is disqualified for being a member of legislature of the state, then that automatically disqualifies her for being the member of panchayat as well. And also the state have the power to enact laws to disqualify people. And these are constitutional provisions. And now comes the most important part, that is powers, authority and responsibility of the panchayats. And again, the constitution does the minor tweaking with the word and it uses the word may. It says, the legislature of a state may by law endow the panchayats with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as institutions of self-government. And this is where the problem lies. Constitution does not mandate the delegation of power. It puts it to the jurisdiction or to the discretion of various states. And so the states can enact laws to delegate various powers which they have to the local government. And what are those? Preparation of plans for economic development and social justice, the implementation of schemes for economic development and social justice as may be entrusted to them, including those in relation to the matters listed in 11th schedule. So these are the two powers which can be given to the local governments by the state legislature or by the state government. Then the constitution also provides for the powers like imposition of taxes or funds by the panchayats, and again the state legislature of a state may by law and not shall by law. And so the state legislature can pass laws through which they can authorize a panchayat to levy, collect and appropriate taxes, duties, tolls, fees as have been provided in their laws. They can also assign to a panchayat taxes, duties, tolls and fee levied and collected by the state government for various purposes. They can also provide for making such grants in aid to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of the state, and they can also provide for constitution of such funds for crediting all money received respectively by or on behalf of the panchayats, and also provide for withdrawal of such monies. But if you look at the actual powers which the panchayats possess right now, there is a lot of variation in that. Some states panchayats have a lot of power as far as taxes and duties are concerned, but there are some states where panchayats do not have practically any kind. Then wherever there is a devolution fund, there is a finance commission. And so just like we have a finance commission provided by Article 280 at the central level to enable the vertical devolution of funds from center to states, we have state finance commissions, which is provided by Article 243I. And just like Article 280 provides for the constitution of finance commission through precedent, here the governor of a state, as soon as may be at the expiration of every 5th year, constitute a finance commission to review the financial position of panchayats and to make recommendation to the governor as to the principles which should govern the distribution of various kinds of net proceeds of taxes, duties and tolls between the state and the panchayats, the principles which will determine the taxes, duties and tolls which may be assigned or appropriated by the panchayats, principles which will determine the grants in aid to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of the state. And also it will suggest the measures which are needed to improve the financial position of the panchayats. And then of course governor may refer any other financial matter to the finance commission. An important aspect of this particular provision is that there is no fixed criteria as to the qualification and the composition of the finance commission, which will be determined by the state legislature by law. So the state legislature of a state may by law provide for the composition of the commission, the qualifications which shall be requisite for appointment as members thereof, and the manner in which they shall be selected, and then what shall be done with that report. So the governor shall cause every recommendation made by the commission under this article together with an explanatory memorandum as to action taken thereon to be laid before the legislature of the state. So finance commission will recommend something, and along with those recommendations, an action taken report as to how many recommendations were agreed by the state government, how many recommendations were not agreed, and if not, why not, all these things shall be laid before the legislature. Then as far as auditing of the accounts of panchayat is concerned, again the state legislature shall make laws regarding that. And then comes that provision because of which we are discussing the whole constitutional provision, and that is related to elections to the panchayats, which is dealt with in Article 243K, which says the superintendent's direction and control of the preparation of electoral rolls for and the conduct of all elections to panchayat shall be vested in state election commission consisting of a state election commissioner to be appointed by the governor. Then what are the securities or the guarantees provided to the election commission? That is given in clause 2. Subject to the provision of any law made by the legislature of a state, the conditions of service and tenure of office of the state election commissioner shall be such as the governor may by rule determine. But provided that the state election commissioner shall not be removed from his office except in like manner and on the like grounds as a judge of high court. So although the states have power to legislate the terms and conditions and tenure of the office of a state election commissioner, but his or her removal has been specified by the constitution, and that has to be on the grounds and on like manner of a judge of a high court. And the condition of service of a state election commissioner shall not be varied to his disadvantage after his appointment. So these are the securities being given to the state election commissioner. So these are the important provisions of Part 9 of the Constitution of India, which deals with panchayat. Some of the important articles which you should remember from the perspective of both prelims as well as mains examination is Article 243B, which deals with the constitution of panchayat, Article 243C, which deals with the composition of panchayats, Article 243D, which deals with the reservation of seats, then Article 243G, which deals with the powers, authority and responsibility of the panchayats, and Article 243H, which deals with powers to impose taxes and funds by the panchayats, and finally Article 243K, which deals with the elections to the panchayats. Now, whenever you have to quote the deficiencies in our Panchayat system, you can say one of the deficiencies is that Constitution does not mandate the delegation of the power as stated in Article 243G and H, where the Constitution uses the word may rather than shall. Now, after having this discussion on the constitutional provision, check for yourself whether you were able to solve these two questions which have been asked in the prelims examination or not. And let us now move on to the next discussion. Then this next news appears on page number 10. Youth kill endangered dolphin in UP. So a video of a group of men and boys in Uttar Pradesh Pratapgarh district beating to death a Gangetic river dolphin surfaced on social media recently. Gangetic dolphin, which is an endangered species, has been recognized as the national aquatic animal. Also, killing the Gangetic river dolphin is a punishable offence under Section 9 and 51 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. And so you have to find out under which schedule of the Wildlife Protection Act does the Gangetic river dolphin lies. Now, Gangetic dolphin is not only an important species from the conservation point of view, but also from the point of view of prelims examination. And just look at these two questions. Which of the following is the national aquatic animal of India? Gangetic dolphin, option C. Then in 2014, UPSC asked, other than poaching, what are the possible reasons for the decline in the population of Ganges river dolphin? One is obviously correct, construction of dams and barrages on rivers which fragments the population. Second is obviously incorrect, which is increase in the population of crocodiles in rivers. Getting trapped in fishing nets accidentally is correct. And fourth one is also correct, which is use of synthetic fertilizers and other agricultural chemicals in the crop fields in the vicinity of river, leading us to the right answer C, 1, 3 and 4. So now you can understand that how important it is to know about the Ganges river dolphin. And so one of the important and fascinating facts about this species is that it can only live in fresh water and is essentially blind. Now the question arises, if they are blind, how do they hunt? And so they hunt by emitting ultrasonic sounds which bounces off of fish and other prey, enabling them to see an image in their mind. They are frequently found alone or in small groups, and generally a mother and a calf travel together. Now there are changes when a calf grows. There are changes in the body and the physiology. So the calves are chocolate brown at birth, and then they have grey brown smooth hairless skin as they grow into adults. Females are larger than males and give birth once every 2 to 3 years to only one calf. So these are some of the general important facts about river dolphin or Ganges river dolphin. Now what about their distribution in India? Now if we talk about the original distribution or distribution like 100 years ago, they once lived in the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna river systems of Nepal, India and Bangladesh. But the species is extinct from most of its earlier distributing range and now being concentrated into few very small population in river Ganges. So what has actually caused this decline in population, and this is what the question was about. So when we talk about the threats to the river Ganges, there are three main threats. First is bycatch. You see, the habitat of the Ganges river dolphin is within one of the most densely populated areas of the world. The Ganges river dolphins and people both favor areas of the river where fish are plentiful and the water current is slower. This has led to fewer fish for people and more dolphins dying as a result of accidentally being caught in a fishing net. And that is what is known as bycatch. The Ganges river dolphin is still hunted for meat and oil, which are both used medicinally. The oil is also used to attract catfish in net fishery. So bycatch is most important threat. Second is pollution, which can be industrial, agriculture or even human. We know that each year around 9,000 tons of pesticides and 6 million tons of fertilizers are used in the vicinity of the Ganges river. And so high levels of pollution can directly kill prey species as well as the dolphin and completely destroy their habitat. And we know that this is a top predator. And so being a top predator, river dolphins have been known to have high levels of persistent toxic chemicals in the bodies, which is likely to adversely affect their health. So after bycatch and pollution, next is infrastructure creation. Ganges River dolphins are divided into isolated groups because of the construction of more than 50 dams and other irrigation related projects on River Ganges. This makes them susceptible to inbreeding and more vulnerable to other threats because they cannot move to new areas. Now, let us know in the comment section what do you understand by inbreeding and how is it disastrous for a species. Dolphins trapped above a dam are exposed to poaching, especially during dry summer months, whereas dolphins below a dam are threatened by heavy pollution, increased fishing activities, and vessel traffic. They also have lesser access to food because dams disturb the migration, breeding cycles, and habitat of fish and other prey. So this topic is mainly important from the perspective of prelims examination. You need to know basic facts about Ganges River dolphin, their distribution, as well as the threats faced by them. Now the next news which we have taken up appears on page number 14. China holds third edition of South Asia Multilateral Meet. Now China has held its third multilateral dialogue with countries from South Asia to take forward closer cooperation on fighting COVID-19 and coordinating their economic agendas, which reflects a new approach in Beijing's outreach to this particular region. And so it becomes important for us to have a closer look at this particular meet, which is third in a row. So of course this meeting was held virtually given the COVID scenario, and it brought together every country in the region except India, Bhutan and Maldives. So you can see that changing geopolitical scenario. Earlier, Maldives had a government which was pro-China and anti-India. With the change of regime, Maldives did not participate. And of course, Bhutan never goes against the interest of India. So only 3 countries of South Asia did not participate. But rest, each one of them did. And that is a cause of concern for India. As we have discussed that this was the third meet. And all 3 dialogues have been attended by Pakistan as well as Nepal, and this is where again the changes are being reflected. Our increasing acrimony with Nepal is being reflected in its increasing closeness with China. And these 2 countries have emerged as 2 linchpins, which basically means an entity which is very important or vital for an organization. So when China looks at South Asia, it has found 2 partners. One was always there, Pakistan, and new one is Nepal. And increasingly Bangladesh is being tied into China's strategy as well. So what was the agenda? And so the 4 main topic of discussions were dealing with the impact of pandemic, then how to resume economic and trade cooperation among these countries. Then they also talked about dealing with non-traditional security challenges and then advancing the sustainable development in this particular region. Now another point to be noted is that in the earlier meet, which was the second meet, which was attended by Afghanistan, Nepal and Pakistan, the China proposed extending the CPEC to Afghanistan and as well as taking it forward with a new corridor plan in Nepal. China has proposed as Trans-Himalayan Multidimensional Connectivity Network. And in the previous 2 rounds, the countries also discussed how to work more closely together under Chinese Belt and Road Initiative or BRI. So this kind of reflects the increasing hold of China in India's neighborhood and the kind of proactive role which China is playing in order to shape the politics of South Asian region.